Imagine a ghost, not the kind that haunts houses or rattles chains in dark hallways. Imagine a ghost made of titanium, composite materials, and raw American engineering genius. A ghost that travels faster than the speed of sound, that bends radar waves around its body like water flowing around a stone, that can destroy you before you ever knew it was there. Imagine a machine so advanced, so terrifyingly capable, that the United States government decided it was too dangerous to sell to anyone. Not to allies, not to partners, not to the closest friends America has on this planet. That machine exists. It flies today. It is called the F-22 Raptor, and what you are about to learn will change the way you think about air power, about warfare, and about what human beings are truly capable of building when they decide that nothing less than absolute dominance will do. You have probably heard the name. You may have seen the videos, those breathtaking clips of a sleek silver jet pulling vertical climbs that seem to defy physics, hovering almost motionless in the air before snapping into a turn so violent it would knock an ordinary pilot unconscious. But seeing a clip on a screen and truly understanding what the F-22 Raptor is, where it came from, what it can do, and why no aircraft on Earth can match it, that is an entirely different journey. And that is exactly the journey we are going on together today. This is not just a story about a fighter jet. This is a story about a civilization deciding it would own the sky. This is a story about engineers who stayed awake for days chasing impossible numbers. About test pilots who flew machines that had never been flown before, pushing airframes to the edge of destruction to see what would break first, the jet or the laws of physics. This is a story about Cold War paranoia, about post-Cold War ambition, about the moment a group of men and women in Marietta, Georgia, and Fort Worth, Texas sat down and said, "What if we built something that no enemy could ever touch? What if we built the perfect fighter?" The answer to that question took decades. It cost billions of dollars. It produced arguments, cancellations, political battles, budget wars, and moments of genuine despair. And at the end of all of it, it produced the most lethal, most sophisticated, most capable air superiority fighter ever constructed by human hands. It produced something that pilots who have flown against it in simulated combat describe not as an opponent, but as a force of nature. So let us begin at the beginning. Let us go back to the Cold War, to the sky over Europe where American and Soviet aircraft circled each other like predators waiting to strike. Because without understanding that world, without understanding the fear and the competition and the technological arms race that defined the second half of the 20th century, you cannot truly understand why the F-22 exists or why it matters so much. The year is 1981. Ronald Reagan has just become president of the United States. The Soviet Union is at the height of its military power. Soviet fighter aircraft, particularly the MiG-29 Fulcrum and the Su-27 Flanker, are closing the gap with American fighters at an alarming rate. For decades, American aircraft had held a meaningful edge over their Soviet counterparts. The F-15 Eagle, introduced in the mid-1970s, was a masterpiece, fast, agile, powerful, with a combat record that would eventually become the most impressive of any fighter in history. But military planners are not paid to be comfortable with today. They are paid to worry about tomorrow. And tomorrow, according to the intelligence reports landing on desks in the Pentagon, looked troubling. The Soviets were developing new airframes, new radar systems, new missiles. The gap was narrowing. Within a decade, perhaps two, American air superiority could no longer be taken for granted. And American air superiority was not just a matter of national pride. It was the cornerstone of NATO's entire defense strategy. Without control of the skies over Europe, a Soviet ground offensive could not be stopped. Tanks and infantry need air cover. Without it, they are targets. So the United States Air Force began asking a question that would define the next generation of American aviation. The question was not, how do we build a better F-15? The question was, how do we build something so far beyond anything the Soviets have, so conceptually advanced that we never have to worry about losing air superiority again. How do we build the last fighter we will ever need? That question became a formal program in 1981 called the Advanced Tactical Fighter Program, or ATF. The Air Force laid out a set of requirements that, at the time, seemed almost impossible. The new aircraft had to be supersonic. Not just supersonic in a screaming, fuel-burning, afterburner-blazing dash, but supersonic in cruise. It had to be able to fly faster than sound for extended periods without using its afterburner at all. This capability, which engineers would call supercruise, was not just impressive. It was strategically transformative. An aircraft that could cruise supersonically without afterburner was an aircraft that could close distance and escape trouble without advertising its position with a massive heat signature. It changed everything about how a fighter could be used. The new aircraft also had to be stealthy. Now in 1981, stealth technology was barely a concept. The F-117 Nighthawk was being developed in total secrecy, a strange angular machine that looked like it had been designed by someone folding origami. It worked, it genuinely defeated radar, but it was slow, it was not maneuverable, and it was a specialized strike aircraft, not a fighter. What the ATF program wanted was something that had never existed before, a stealthy aircraft that was also a world-class dogfighter. Something that could hide from radar and then, if it was ever seen, outfly and outshoot anything that came for it. And finally, the new aircraft had to be supremely maneuverable. Not just good at turning, not just capable, supremely maneuverable. It had to be able to point its nose anywhere, instantly, with a precision and speed that went beyond what conventional aerodynamics could deliver. These three requirements, supercruise, stealth, and supermaneuverability, were not just ambitious. In combination, they had never been achieved in a single aircraft. Engineers across the American aerospace industry looked at this list and felt a mixture of excitement and genuine fear. Could it be done? Was it physically possible to reconcile the aerodynamic demands of low radar cross-section with the demands of high agility? Could you build an engine powerful enough for sustained supersonic cruise and still fit it inside a stealthy airframe? These were open questions in 1981. Nobody knew the answers. Two teams would compete for the contract. Lockheed, teaming with Boeing and General Dynamics, would build the YF-22. Northrop, teaming with McDonnell Douglas, would build the YF-23. The competition that followed was one of the most dramatic and consequential in aerospace history. Both teams produced extraordinary aircraft. Both aircraft flew. Both exceeded expectations. And in April of 1991, after years of development, testing, and evaluation, the Air Force announced its decision. The YF-22 had won. Lockheed's design would become the F-22 Raptor. Now, why did the YF-22 win over the YF-23? This is a question that aviation historians and enthusiasts have debated for decades. The YF-23 was in some respects a more radical design. It was arguably stealthier. It may have been faster. Some analysts believe it was the superior aircraft in pure performance terms. But the Air Force chose the YF-22, and the reasons were multiple. The YF-22 demonstrated superior agility. It was more mature in terms of weapons systems integration, and Lockheed had a stronger track record with operational fighter development. Whether history will judge that decision as correct is still debated. What is not debated is what the winning team did next. Because now came the hard part. Now came the decade of development between concept and production. Now came the process of taking a technology demonstrator and turning it into an aircraft that could actually be built in numbers, maintained in the field, flown by military pilots, and taken to war. This process, for the F-22, would prove to be enormously difficult, enormously expensive, and at times, enormously controversial. The technical challenges were staggering. The F-22 stealth requirements demanded manufacturing tolerances so precise they were nearly impossible to achieve with existing tools. Every panel, every access door, Every seam on the aircraft's surface had to align with microscopic accuracy. If edges did not meet perfectly, radar waves would bounce off them and the aircraft's signature would grow. The coatings applied to the aircraft's surface, the radar-absorbent materials that are one of the keys to its stealth, had to be applied with extraordinary care and maintained with constant attention. Flying the F-22 required maintenance procedures that were unlike anything seen before in military aviation. The avionics were equally revolutionary. The F-22 sensor suite was not just a collection of individual systems, a radar here, a missile warning system there. It was an integrated whole, a network of sensors and processors that fused information from multiple sources and presented the pilot with a single, coherent tactical picture. The pilot of an F-22 does not look at 6 different screens showing 6 different data feeds and try to synthesize them in his or her head. The aircraft does that synthesis automatically, delivering a unified understanding of the battle space that no previous fighter had ever been able to provide. The radar at the heart of this system, the APG-77, was a quantum leap forward in fighter radar technology. It was an active electronically scanned array, or AESA radar, at a time when most fighters still used mechanically scanned antennas. The difference is profound. A mechanical radar antenna physically moves to scan, which takes time and creates a predictable emission pattern. An AESA radar scans electronically, with no moving parts, able to shift its beam in microseconds, able to look in multiple directions nearly simultaneously, able to change its emission frequency constantly to evade jamming. The APG-77 can detect, track, and engage targets at ranges that were simply impossible for earlier radars. It can do so while simultaneously providing its own low probability of intercept, meaning enemy aircraft equipped with radar warning receivers may not even know they are being painted. And then there are the engines. 2 Pratt & Whitney F-119 turbofan engines, each producing 35,000 pounds of thrust with afterburner. These are not merely powerful. They are sophisticated in ways that go far beyond thrust numbers. Each engine is equipped with 2-dimensional thrust vectoring nozzles, meaning the engine exhaust can be deflected up and down to push the aircraft's nose in directions that conventional aerodynamics alone could not achieve. When the F-22 performs what appears to be an impossible maneuver, snapping its nose 90 degrees off its flight path at low speed, or performing the famous Cobra maneuver where it pitches up nearly vertically and seems to stand still in the air, thrust vectoring is a key part of how that is possible. The combination of powerful engines and thrust vectoring gives the F-22 a quality that pilots describe in almost mystical terms. It goes where you point it, immediately, completely, without hesitation. In a turning fight at close range, this quality is decisive. An opponent who is trying to get the F-22 in their sights will find the F-22's nose already pointed at them before they understand what has happened. But here is a critical thing to understand about the F-22's design philosophy. It was never primarily designed to win close-range dogfights. Close-range dogfighting, the dramatic, turning, twisting combat that fighter pilots call a fur ball, is precisely what the F-22 is designed to avoid. Because if an F-22 pilot is in a close-range dogfight, something has already gone wrong. The F-22's preferred mode of combat is something entirely different. It is beyond visual range engagement. It is killing the enemy before the enemy knows he is there. Picture this. An F-22 is patrolling at altitude, supercruising at Mach 1.5, 50,000 feet above the Earth. Its N/APG-77 radar is active but emitting at low probability of intercept frequencies, gathering information about enemy aircraft 100 miles away without those aircraft's radar warning receivers picking up a signal. The F-22's sensor fusion system integrates data from its own radar with data from off-board sources, satellite feeds, airborne warning and control aircraft, ground stations, building a complete tactical picture. The pilot selects targets. The aircraft's fire control system calculates firing solutions with a precision that seems almost unfair. And then the weapons bay doors open. This is another critical feature of the F-22 that is easy to overlook. The aircraft carries its weapons internally in 3 weapons bays, 1 large main bay and 2 smaller side bays. Why does this matter? Because weapons hanging on external pylons are one of the largest contributors to an aircraft's radar signature. External weapons create the corners and edges that radar waves love to bounce off of. By carrying weapons internally, the F-22 maintains its stealth right up to the moment of weapons release. The doors open, the missile comes out, the doors close. For a fraction of a second, the aircraft's signature increases. And then it is a ghost again. The AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles carried in the main bay are themselves remarkable weapons. They are active radar homing missiles, meaning once fired, they guide themselves to the target using their own onboard radar. The pilot who fires them does not need to continue pointing his aircraft at the target. He can fire and maneuver, fire and turn away, fire and disappear. The missile finds its own way. At the ranges the F-22 can fire from, ranges that can exceed 100 miles in optimal conditions, the target aircraft may have no warning whatsoever. The first indication that a missile is in the air may be the missile's own radar activating in terminal guidance mode, at which point the target has seconds to respond. Seconds. Against a missile traveling at multiple times the speed of sound. Seconds to detect, analyze, decide, and execute a countermeasure. For many aircraft, in many scenarios, those seconds are not enough. Now let us talk about stealth in more detail, because stealth is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of the F-22. Stealth does not mean invisible. This is a crucially important point. The F-22 is not invisible to radar. It never was. What stealth means, what it has always meant, is that the aircraft's radar cross-section is so small that detecting it reliably, tracking it continuously, and targeting it accurately becomes extraordinarily difficult. The F-22's radar cross-section is often described as being comparable to a metal marble. Some estimates put it even smaller than that. What this means in practical terms is that a radar system that could detect and track a conventional fighter at, say, 200 miles might only be able to detect the F-22 at 20 miles. Or 10. Or not at all. Why does this matter so much? Because in modern air combat, information is everything. The side that knows where the enemy is, and the enemy does not know where you are, has an overwhelming tactical advantage. The F-22 is designed to be the ultimate expression of this principle. It can see everything. Its opponent can see almost nothing. By the time an enemy aircraft has any reliable indication that an F-22 is in the area, the F-22 has likely already fired its weapons and begun turning away. The geometry of this situation is almost impossible to overcome. Let us say you are the pilot of a highly capable 4th-generation fighter, an Su-35, or an F-15, or a Typhoon. Your radar is good. Your missiles are capable. Your aircraft is fast and agile. You are, by any historical standard, flying one of the finest aircraft ever built. Now you enter an airspace where F-22s are operating. Your radar warning receiver begins to show soft contacts, ambiguous returns, things that might be aircraft or might be noise. You are never quite certain whether you are being tracked or not. And then, from a direction you were not expecting, at a range you did not think was possible, a missile appears on your radar warning display. It has already completed most of its flight. You have perhaps 4 seconds to decide what to do. That is the F-22 experience from the other side. That is what makes pilots who have faced it in exercises describe it not as a competitive opponent, but as something categorically different. Let us talk about those exercises, because they tell a remarkably consistent story. The F-22 has participated in numerous large force employment exercises against other American aircraft, F-15s, F-16s, F divided by a -18s, and against Allied aircraft in multinational exercises. The kill ratios reported in these exercises are extraordinary. Numbers like 100 to 1 F-22 destroyed for every 100 adversary aircraft eliminated, have been cited by senior Air Force officers. In a 2009 exercise in Alaska called Northern Edge, F-22s achieved kill ratios that were described by participants as absolutely unprecedented. Aircraft that were supposed to be challenging adversaries were dispatched with a consistency that left their pilots shaking their heads. Now, it is important to be honest about exercises. They are not war. They take place under specific rules of engagement, with specific constraints, with specific assumptions. A real conflict would introduce variables that no exercise can fully replicate. Electronic warfare at full intensity, deception, surprise, the fog and friction of genuine combat. But the consistency of the F-22's exercise performance across different scenarios, different opponents, and different conditions tells a story that is difficult to dismiss. Something about this aircraft is fundamentally different from what came before. And part of what is fundamentally different is the pilot experience. Ask any pilot who has flown the F-22, and they will tell you the same thing in slightly different words. The aircraft does not feel like a tool you are operating. It feels like an extension of your mind. The information you need appears before you need it. The aircraft responds before you have finished the thought of what you want it to do. The sensor fusion system means that you are never managing data. You are commanding a battle. You are the predator, moving through a landscape that only you can see, making decisions that your opponents cannot comprehend because they do not even know you are there. This psychological dimension of the F-22 is real and significant. Air combat is not just a physics problem. It is a psychological one. Fear, uncertainty, surprise. These are weapons as real as missiles. An enemy pilot who knows that F-22s are operating in the area but cannot locate them, cannot track them reliably, cannot be certain when or from what direction an attack might come, that pilot is already compromised. Decision-making degrades under uncertainty. Situational awareness collapses when you are scanning for a threat you cannot find. The F-22 weaponizes uncertainty itself. Now let us address the question that many people ask when they learn about the F-22. If this aircraft is so extraordinarily capable, why was production stopped at just 187 aircraft? Why did the United States build so few of something so dominant? The answer is complicated, and it involves money, politics, changing strategic priorities, and decisions that many in the defense community consider one of the most significant strategic mistakes of the early 21st century. Production of the F-22 was halted in 2009 under Defense Secretary Robert Gates. The reasons given were primarily financial. The F-22 was expensive, extraordinarily expensive. The program cost, over its full life cycle, has been estimated at more than $67 billion for 187 aircraft. That works out to roughly $350 million per aircraft, depending on how you calculate program costs. Against the backdrop of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, counterinsurgency campaigns where sophisticated air-to-air fighters were of limited direct utility, it was easy for budget hawks to argue that more F-22s were an extravagant luxury. There were also genuine technical concerns. The F-22 was difficult to maintain. Its stealth coatings required painstaking upkeep. Its sophisticated avionics, while revolutionary, also had reliability challenges in the early years of the program. The aircraft's oxygen generation system caused problems that grounded the fleet for months. These issues were real, and they contributed to a political environment where cutting production was seen as defensible. And there was a strategic argument. The F-22 was designed to fight Soviet-style air forces, large numbers of sophisticated fighters over the European or Asian landmass. In 2009, that threat seemed less urgent than it had in 1981. The dominant security challenges were terrorism, insurgency, and nation-states that did not field air forces capable of challenging American air superiority. But critics of the production halt argued then, and argue now, that this reasoning was dangerously short-sighted. Military forces are built not for the threats of today, but for the threats of tomorrow. And tomorrow, meaning today, in 2026, the world looks very different from 2009. China has developed the J-20 stealth fighter, an aircraft that represents a genuine leap forward in Chinese aviation capability. Russia has developed the Su-57, a fifth-generation fighter with stealth features and advanced avionics. Both nations have invested heavily in advanced surface-to-air missile systems and integrated air defense networks designed specifically to challenge American air power. Had production of the F-22 continued to the originally planned numbers, somewhere between 300 and 750 aircraft, depending on which version of the program you look at, the United States would today have a substantially larger force of the world's most capable air superiority fighter. Instead, 187 Raptors must cover the entire globe. It is a force that is, by any honest assessment, smaller than the strategic situation demands. But here is the thing about those 187 aircraft. Each one of them is something that no other nation on Earth possesses. Each one is a concentrated package of the most advanced aviation technology ever deployed, and the United States has been upgrading them continuously. The Increment 3.2 upgrades improve the F-22's ability to strike ground targets, expanding its mission capability beyond pure air superiority. Further upgrades have improved its electronic warfare capabilities, its data links, its weapons carrying capacity. An F-22 flying today is substantially more capable than the F-22 that first achieved initial operational capability in 2005. And the F-22 is not alone. It operates in a system. It is designed to work alongside other assets: F-35s, B-21 bombers, unmanned systems, space-based sensors, ground-based electronic warfare. The F-22's role in a future high-end conflict would not be to single-handedly destroy an enemy air force. It would be to penetrate contested airspace that no other aircraft can safely enter, destroy the most dangerous enemy threats, and open corridors for other forces to operate. It would be the tip of the spear in an integrated campaign that leverages every element of American military capability. This is where the F-22 connects to something larger than itself, to the concept of what military analysts call the kill chain. A kill chain is the sequence of steps required to find, fix, track, target, engage, and assess a military target. The F-22 is designed to be part of a kill chain that is faster, more integrated, and more lethal than anything an adversary can assemble. Its sensors feed information into a network. Its weapons close the chain with extreme precision. Its stealth protects it long enough to do the work. And then it disappears. Let us talk for a moment about the men and women who fly the F-22. Because the aircraft is extraordinary, but it is still flown by human beings, and those human beings are extraordinary in their own right. F-22 pilots are selected from among the top graduates of the United States Air Force's fighter pilot training programs. They then undergo months of specialized training to learn the F-22's systems, its tactics, and its unique capabilities. The aircraft is not forgiving of carelessness. Flying it at the edge of its performance envelope, the regime where its capabilities are most decisive, requires skill, judgment, and situational awareness of a very high order. The F-22 will do things that defy intuition, that look impossible, that require a pilot to trust the aircraft's computers and fly through maneuvers that every instinct tells him cannot end well. Learning to trust the aircraft fully, to accept that when you push the control stick in a direction that seems crazy, the aircraft will follow and survive, is one of the defining challenges of F-22 training. Pilots who master it describe a kind of oneness with the machine that goes beyond what they felt in any previous aircraft. They speak of flying the F-22 as something close to a spiritual experience, a feeling of total capability, of moving through three-dimensional space with a freedom and a precision that no other aircraft provides. Several experienced fighter pilots who transitioned to the F-22 from other aircraft have said that flying other fighters after the Raptor felt like going backwards, like being given a bicycle after you had been driving a race car. The physical demands on F-22 pilots are also extraordinary. The aircraft's maneuverability means it can generate gravitational forces, G-forces, that push blood out of the pilot's brain and toward his legs, causing tunnel vision and, if severe enough, loss of consciousness. F-22 pilots wear special anti-G suits and use breathing techniques specifically designed to counteract these forces. In a sustained 9G turn, the pilot experiences 9 times the normal force of gravity. His 170-pound body feels as though it weighs over 1,500 pounds. Maintaining mental acuity, making tactical decisions, and flying the aircraft precisely under these conditions requires physical conditioning and mental toughness that very few people can develop. And yet the pilots who fly the F-22 will tell you that the aircraft itself helps. The sensor fusion, the automated systems, the way information is presented, all of it is designed to reduce the cognitive load on the pilot so that his mental energy can go into making good tactical decisions rather than managing data. The aircraft is, in a real sense, designed to make its pilot smarter and faster than he or she could ever be without it. Now let us turn to the geopolitical dimension of the F-22. Because the decision to restrict its sale has shaped American alliance relationships in ways that continue to reverberate today. Many American allies, Japan, Australia, Israel, the United Kingdom, have at various points expressed strong desire to purchase the F-22. Japan in particular has been persistent in its interest, viewing the aircraft as critical to its ability to counter Chinese and Russian air power in the Pacific. But a law passed by the United States Congress in 1998, specifically prohibiting the export of the F-22, has blocked all such sales. The reasons are multiple. The aircraft contains technologies so sensitive that the government does not want them accessible to foreign intelligence services, even allied ones. The integration of the F-22 systems is so complex that supporting it in foreign air forces would create security vulnerabilities. And frankly, there is a strategic calculation. If America's allies fly the same aircraft as America, some of the technological advantage that the aircraft represents is diluted. The result has been that America's closest partners, facing some of the world's most capable adversaries, have been forced to make do with other options, primarily the F-35, which is an excellent aircraft but serves a different mission than the F-22 or aging fourth-generation aircraft that face real challenges in the emerging threat environment. Japan has developed its own fifth-generation fighter program, the FX, partly because it could not buy what it actually wanted. Australia has looked at its own advanced fighter development. The F-22 export ban has accelerated indigenous fifth-generation fighter programs in multiple countries, some of which may one day become competitors to American industry. This dynamic, American technological dominance creating strategic complications with allies, is one of the most interesting aspects of the F-22 story. It is a reminder that the most advanced military technologies are never just technical objects. They are political ones. They reshape relationships, create dependencies, generate resentments, and force decisions that reverberate for decades. Let us now look at the potential adversaries that the F-22 might one day face, and be honest about the threat landscape as it exists in 2026. Because the world has not stood still while America has debated the future of its air power. China's J-20 Mighty Dragon is a genuine fifth-generation fighter. It features low observable design, an ASA radar, and thrust vectoring on later variants. Western analysts have debated its true capabilities, in particular whether its stealth performance matches the F-22's. But the consensus is that it represents a qualitative step beyond anything China previously flew. China is producing the J-20 in significant numbers, with the fleet growing steadily. The J-20 is designed for a specific mission in the Pacific to defeat American airborne early warning and control aircraft, tankers, and other high-value targets that support American air operations. By targeting these support assets, the aircraft that give American fighters the fuel and the information they need, the J-20 could undermine American air power without ever engaging the F-22 directly. This is a sophisticated strategic concept, and it reflects the maturation of Chinese military thinking. Rather than trying to match the F-22 fighter-to-fighter, a competition China would lose, the J-20 strategy is to attack the supporting architecture that makes the F-22 so effective. Cut the data links, kill the tankers, blind the early warning aircraft, and suddenly even the F-22 is operating in a degraded environment, burning through fuel it cannot replace, making decisions without the information it needs. Russia's Su-57 Felon is a more controversial aircraft. It has fifth-generation features, reduced radar cross-section, thrust vectoring, advanced avionics. But Western analysts have generally assessed it as not achieving true stealth performance comparable to the F-22 or F-35. Production has been slow, with the Russian economy under severe pressure from sanctions related to the war in Ukraine. The Su-57 program has faced delays, funding shortfalls, and questions about whether Russia can sustain the industrial base required to produce and maintain truly advanced combat aircraft at scale. Nevertheless, a small number of Su-57s are operational, and the aircraft continues to be developed. Its advanced missiles, particularly the R-37M, which has an extremely long range, represent a genuine capability that any aircraft, including the F-22, must take seriously. The surface-to-air missile threat is, in many respects, as significant as the fighter threat. Modern integrated air defense systems, Russia's S-400 and the more advanced S-500, China's HQ-9 and its newer variants, are sophisticated, mobile, and designed specifically to challenge stealth aircraft. The S-400's long-range missiles, combined with its advanced radars that operate at multiple frequencies, including lower frequency bands that are less susceptible to the F-22's stealth, represent a real challenge. The F-22 is not invulnerable to surface-to-air missiles. Stealth reduces the probability of detection and engagement. It does not eliminate it. Against a modern, well-operated integrated air defense network, flying an F-22 is still dangerous. It is just far less dangerous than flying anything else. This is the key insight that sometimes gets lost in discussions of the F-22's capabilities. The aircraft is not invincible. It is not magic. It is an extremely well-engineered reduction in risk. It makes possible operations that would be suicidal for other aircraft. It does not make those operations without risk. The men and women who fly it in harm's way are still courageous, still mortal, still operating at the edge of what human beings and machines can do together. And this brings us to what may be the most important dimension of the F-22's legacy, what it represents about America's capacity for sustained technological ambition. The F-22 was conceived in 1981 and reached initial operational capability in 2005, 24 years from concept to deployment. During those 24 years, the program faced cancellation multiple times. It overcame technical challenges that seemed insurmountable. It cost more than anyone originally projected. It demanded the best from engineers, test pilots, program managers, and the industrial workers who built it. And at the end of all of that, it produced something unprecedented. Something that, more than 2 decades after it entered service, remains the most capable air superiority fighter in the world. something that potential adversaries have structured significant portions of their military strategy around defeating and have not yet succeeded. That is an extraordinary achievement. It is the result of sustained national commitment to technological excellence in a field where excellence means the difference between pilots coming home and pilots not coming home. It is the result of a culture within Lockheed Skunk Works, within the Air Force, within the broader American defense industrial base, that does not accept good enough, that asks, always, what would perfect look like, and then tries to build it. The F-22 is not perfect. No aircraft ever is. Its production run was too short. Its maintenance demands are too high. Its cost was too great. Its inability to be exported has created strategic complications. These are real limitations, and they matter. But within the context of what it was asked to do, to be the most capable air superiority fighter ever built, to ensure that American pilots would own the sky wherever they flew, the F-22 Raptor has succeeded beyond what its creators dared to hope. Consider for a moment what it means to own the sky. Throughout history, control of the air has determined the outcome of wars. At Midway in 1942, American carrier aircraft destroyed 4 Japanese fleet carriers in a single afternoon, changing the entire course of the Pacific War. In the summer of 1940, the Royal Air Force's Fighter Command defeated the Luftwaffe's attempt to achieve air superiority over Britain, saving the country from invasion. In the Gulf War of 1991, American air power, including the first operational use of stealth aircraft, so thoroughly suppressed Iraqi air defenses that the land campaign lasted only 100 hours. Control of the air is not just a military advantage. It is a force multiplier that amplifies every other advantage. Ground forces that do not have to worry about enemy air attack can move faster, concentrate more boldly, and take positions that would otherwise be suicidal. Naval forces that operate under friendly air cover can project power into waters they could never enter otherwise. Logistics operations, the movement of fuel, ammunition, and supplies that are the blood of military operations, can proceed without constant disruption. The F-22 is America's insurance policy for all of this. It is the guarantee that when American forces go to war, they will go to war in a sky that belongs to them. That guarantee has a price, a very high price. But the cost of not having it, of fighting a war without air superiority, has historically been measured not in dollars, but in catastrophe. Let us look ahead now, beyond the present moment, to the future of air power and the F-22's place in it. The United States Air Force is developing the Next Generation Air Dominance Program, known as NGAD, which is intended to eventually replace the F-22. NGAD is designed for the threat environment of the 2030s and 2040s, a world where adversary stealth aircraft and surface-to-air missiles have continued to improve, where directed energy weapons may play a significant role, where artificial intelligence may assist or even partially automate aerial combat decisions. What is known about NGAD suggests it will be a significant step forward even from the F-22, larger, longer-ranged, with even more advanced stealth and sensors, and potentially designed from the ground up to operate in concert with loyal wingman unmanned aircraft that extend its reach and multiply its effectiveness. The Raptor, extraordinary as it is, will eventually pass into history as its successors take over the role of guaranteeing American air dominance. But that transition is years away. In the meantime, the F-22 Raptor stands alone. It is the benchmark against which every other air superiority fighter in the world is measured, and none of them quite measures up. It is the aircraft that changed what it means to control the sky. It is the reason that when American pilots climb into their cockpits in contested airspace, they do so with a confidence that comes not from bravado, but from engineering. There is something humbling about standing next to an F-22 on a flight line. It is not the biggest aircraft. It is not the loudest. In certain lighting conditions, at certain angles, it seems almost to disappear, which is appropriate, because disappearing is one of the things it does better than anything else in the sky. But when you understand what it contains, the decades of engineering genius, the billions of dollars, the lives dedicated to making it the best that human beings could build, it becomes something more than a machine. It becomes a statement, a declaration about what a civilization can do when it decides that something matters enough to do it right. The F-22 Raptor is that declaration. Written in titanium and composite fiber and the exhaust of two Pratt & Whitney engines turning 50,000 pounds of thrust into forward motion and vertical climb and the impossible maneuvers that leave every watching pilot speechless. Written in the lives of the test pilots who flew it when no one was certain it would come back down safely. Written in the decades of quiet, grinding work by engineers whose names most people will never know, who solved problems that had no solutions until they found them. It is the most capable fighter aircraft ever built. No other nation has matched it. No current program has clearly surpassed it. And until something does, until the next generation arrives to take its place at the top of the hierarchy of air power, the sky belongs to the Raptor. The next time you look up and see a contrail crossing the blue, think about that. Think about what might be making it. Think about the extraordinary convergence of human ambition, technical genius, national will, and physical courage that produced the F-22 Raptor. And think about the pilot sitting in that cockpit, seeing a picture of the world that you and I will never see, moving through 3 dimensions with a freedom and a capability that no human being in history possessed before 1981 when someone sat down and asked, what would the perfect fighter look like? They built the answer. It is called the Raptor, and no one can catch it. Now, I want to hear from you. Given everything you have just learned about the F-22 Raptor, here is the question I want you to answer in the comments below. If you were the Secretary of Defense today, with full knowledge of the threats America faces in 2026 and beyond, would you restart F-22 production, even at the staggering cost it would require? Or would you put every available dollar into developing the next generation NGAD platform as fast as possible? There is no right answer here. There are only priorities and trade-offs and the weight of decisions that real people in real positions face every day. Think about it. Let me know what you decide. And if this video gave you something to think about, if it changed how you see what is flying above your head, then subscribe, share it with someone who loves military history, and come back. Because there are more stories like this one waiting. Stories about the machines and the people who built them that deserve to be told, and that we are only just getting started on.